What's up, guys? Today we're going to be learning how to make this double pom-pom ribbed crochet winter hat. We're going to start off with part one of our work, which is the body. We're going to start off by working our foundation, and to do so, we're just going to make a slip knot. Once our slip knot is secure, we're going to chain 24. Once our chain 24 is complete, we're going to add one extra chain, but this does not count as a stitch. Moving on to row 1, where we will half double crochet in the second chain from the hook and every chain across for a total of 24 half double crochet. To do so, we're just going to skip that first chain and we're going to yarn over. We're going to insert our hook into the chain and pull through a loop through the chain. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. Then you're simply going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. You're going to do this until you reach the end of your row. When you've completed all 24 half double crochet, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. For row 2, you're going to half double crochet in the center bar of the second stitch from the hook and every stitch across for a total of 24 half double crochet. So, by center bar, I just mean this bar that lies right below the regular stitch. So we have our regular stitch that we normally work our stitches into, but we're going to work our stitches this time into the center bar that falls directly below the stitch. In this, we're simply completing our half double crochet as normal, but instead of working them into the regular stitch, we're going to work them into this horizontal bar that falls directly below the stitch. What this does is turn the regular stitch so that we get a ribbed effect in our overall body of work. When you've completed row 2, you're simply going to chain 1 and turn. As you can see, we do have that ribbing effect on the other side. The ribbing effect will only occur on one side. Moving on to row 3, where we will half double crochet in the back loop of the second stitch from the hook and every stitch across for a total of 24 half double crochet. So instead of inserting into the horizontal bar, we're going to do something a little bit easier, which is just insert your hook into the back loop of every single stitch across until you have 24 half double crochet total. Upon completion of row 3, you're going to simply chain 1 and turn. For rows 4 to 25, you are simply going to repeat rows 2 and 3. So, row 2 is inserting your hook into the center bar, and row 3 is inserting your hook into the back loop. Nonetheless, you are still completing half double crochet. When you reach the end of row 25, you're going to begin by chaining 1. Then you're going to pull up a loop of any size. Then you're going to cut and fasten to secure that knot that we simply just made. The ribbing will only be on one side of the hat. Moving on to part 2, which is the brim of our hat. We're going to begin, as always, by making a slip knot. Next, we're going to chain 5. Afterwards, we're going to add 1 chain, but this does not count as a stitch. For row 1, we're going to slip stitch in the second chain from the hook and every chain across for a total of 5 slip stitch. To slip stitch, you're simply going to insert your hook into the chain. You're going to pull through a loop so that you have 2 loops on your hook, and then you're going to pull through again so that you only have 1 loop on your hook. Next, we're going to chain 1 and turn. For the remainder of the brim, we're going to repeat row 1 until the width of our brim matches the width of the body of the hat. So we're repeating row 1 by slip stitching into the top loop of every slip stitch. Some people may like to slip stitch in both loops. I preferably like to slip stitch in only the top loop because I find that the slip stitching process goes much faster. Before I finish, I just want to reference the body of my work to ensure that my brim matches the width of my hat. When you are sure of this, you're going to chain 1, then you're going to pull up a loop that is approximately 20 inches. Afterwards, you're just going to cut and fasten. Next is part 3, which is the sewing aspect of our hat. When I reach the end of sewing the brim, I kind of just like to go back and back sew basically to tuck in all of the other loose ends that I have. Before I do that, I just tie a little knot to make sure that it's secure. And then I just go right in and I sew in the opposite direction. And then when I'm done sewing a little bit, I just cut it off and keep it moving. When you finish sewing on the brim, you're simply going to take your hat and you're going to fold it hamburger style so that the rib side is inward and that the folded side is on your left side and the part that opens up to the world is on your right hand side. So I've now shifted the opening of the hat essentially upward because this is where I'm going to begin sewing. So I'm going to start my sewing about 2.5 inches up from the brim of the hat, and this is what's going to give the space for us to sew on our pom-poms. Now for sewing this part, and simply we're going to sew from the right hand side to the left hand side. I'm just going to attach some yarn to a needle. I'm going to fasten it onto the hat so that it's nice and secure. And then once again, I'm simply going to sew from the right hand side to the left hand side. You're going to stop sewing both sides together when you reach the left hand corner. And once again here, I just want to mention that we are sewing both sides together. We're not sewing through one side, so just double check at all times to make sure that you're sewing both sides together. So when I reach that left hand corner, I'm just going to stop sewing for a little bit, and I'm going to make sure that my opening is an opening and it's not sewed together. And then I'm going to shift my piece so that the place where I stopped is now on my right hand side. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to be making the enclosed part of the hat. So instead of sewing both sides together, we're going to weave through one side. And I repeat, we are going to weave through only one side of the hat. We're going to go around the entire circumference of the hat, okay? until we reach the point in which we began, which is on that right hand side. Once you reach the point in which you started, you should be able to pull on the yarn with the needle attached to it, because that'll just tighten up that circle of yours. Afterwards, you're just going to insert your needle a couple times through that closing, and what that's going to do is just ensure that it remains closed. I like to create a couple knots along the way. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, as long as you're confident that it's secure. Once you're confident that it's secure, I'm going to just insert my needle inside the middle of the hat and pull it through the other direction. And you're not going to cut the needle off, because this is what we're going to use to later sew on one of the pom-poms for our hat. As you can see, the hat is still wrong side out, right? So if you want, you can just turn it right side out to see the rib side of the hat. And when you do turn it right side out, the needle should be facing on the outside instead of in the inside. Moving on to part 4, which is my personal favorite, making the pom-poms. If you don't have a pom-pom maker, you can make them at home. You just need 2 pieces of cardboard that you cut into a circle, cut a circle into the middle, and then cut a slit through. So I would just pause for a little just to get the diagram, going. But once you get your 2 pieces of circular pom-pom thingies, you are simply going to wrap your yarn around the pom-pom in an equal and even fashion. The more you wrap your yarn around, the bigger your pom-pom. I made it a point to make this pom-pom large and in charge because that's what I wanted. But if you want smaller pom-poms, that's up to you and it's at your discretion. When you feel like you've had enough yarn, what you're going to do is take some scissors and you're going to cut through both of the cardboard pieces. This can be kind of strenuous if you've wrapped your yarn a little too tight. So just a word of caution, don't wrap your yarn too tight. You're going to go all the way around and you're just going to make sure that you're holding the cardboard as you go. Once you're done cutting, you're going to take a piece of yarn and you're just going to put it in between the 2 slits of the cardboard. I like to start off where that opening is in my cardboard because it makes it easier to manage. You can start off wherever. Once you get the yarn through, you're simply going to tie a knot. And you want to make sure that the tie is pretty tight. You don't want it to be a loose tie. You really want it to hold all of those cut pieces of yarn together. So, after I've really tied that piece of yarn onto my pom-pom, I am going to take out my cardboard slits, and now you can just kind of refine the pom-pom, make it a little bit more spherical instead of some type of random 3D shape. And this may take a little bit of time. I just recommend, taking your time, really enjoying the process. After you're done doing so, you can cut off the extra pieces of yarn and they'll just blend right into your pom-pom. And then afterward, you just want to create 3 pom-poms total. Next, all you have to do is take the needle that is already fastened onto your hat and you're going to pull it through your pom-pom. I like to pull it through a couple times to ensure that the pom-pom is actually fastened on to the hat. When you're done, you can just create a couple knots. I really cannot tell you a strategy on how I tie my knots because I swear it's different every single time. But my main objective is to just make sure that the pom-pom is fastened. So just use your best judgment. Don't be lazy about it. If you gotta tie 8 knots, then go ahead and tie 8 knots. When you're done, you can just take your scissors and you can cut. And then what we're going to do, I'm using the same needle and yarn. You can fasten on a new piece if you want to your needle, whatever works. And you're just going to attach both of the remaining pom-poms to the opening that we created when we first started sewing our hat together. I'm doing this in the same fashion that I did the pom-pom on the top, and my ultimate goal is just to ensure that the pom-pom is secured onto the hat. That completes our hat. I hope this hat was cozy enough, ribbed enough, and crocheted enough for your liking. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.